My name is Christine Shulman. I'm the Vice President of Go-to-Market Strategy here at FourKites.
Hi, my name is John Maley. I'm the Strategic Solutions Director for our facility space here at FourKites.
Today, we'll be talking about 5 of the biggest challenges shippers are facing right now and discuss how FourKites customers have combated these challenges with real-time visibility. A study that was released last fall by JP Morgan, studying the S&P 1500 companies, stated there's over $600 billion in working capital liquidity tied up in the supply chain. This is important as many shippers may be faced with flat or decreased customer demand and rising costs due to inflation and interest rates. We understand now that there are big dollars tied to these 5 challenges, but before we dive into the details on each of these and how FourKites customers have addressed them, John, can you speak a bit about the current state of the global supply chain? What is top of mind and dynamics for supply chain leaders?
Sure, Christine. So I typically divide them into some very basic categories. The first one that I look at is sort of the geopolitical atmosphere that exists today. So we've got the Ukraine-Russia situation. We've got the Israel-Hamas situation. And while those have been fairly geographically contained, I think everyone's fear is that they could easily spill over and become more of a global situation. And what is that going to mean, not just to the supply chains of the world, but the people of the world in general? What's that going to do to their day-to-day life? So constantly keeping an eye on that. The next one really is the economy. And here I like to say it's the perception versus the reality. I mean, the reality of today's economy is that it's actually post-pandemic in a pretty good spot. We've seen inflation go down. We're seeing unemployment go down. But for some reason, the perception amongst a lot of people you talk to is that the economy still is suffering post-pandemic trauma. I don't see it, but nevertheless, that's the perception. Another big area is the weather. I read the other day that there's a 99% chance that due to global warming, this year will be the hottest year on record yet. That has severe implications for disrupting the weather patterns across the globe. We know that this is going to be a very active hurricane season. We've already been told that by the National Weather Association, by NOAA, that really impacts the eastern seaboard of the United States mostly. But of course, those supply chains have ripple effects across the globe. And then there's the Panama Canal drought, which even though only 6% of today's global trade actually passes through the Panama Canal, the not having that passageway and the ability for that 6% to have to sail around South America, that's a big deal as well. The last major area that I look at is technology. And this is an area that's rapidly changing. I mean, just a few years ago, we were talking about IT and blockchain, and now we're talking about artificial intelligence and machine learning, and that seems to be everywhere and just proliferating at a breakneck pace. And what is that going to mean for the supply chains of the world as that starts to take hold?
John, you hit on a lot of things, which to me all sounds like potential supply chain disruptors, some big and some small, but all creating various levels of reactive behavior. Let's take a look at how Niagara Bottling addressed this with real-time visibility.
So let's talk about the 2 different stages and 2 different areas by which we came from. So historically, we had EDI laden data, so all old data coming through, very, very slow response times, and ultimately frustrated customers and frustrated stakeholders. So in this area, we were very reactive. Now we are going to be automated, streamlined, have data in real time, and be connected through the cloud. Overall, we know this is a more proactive approach. So as I talk through my presentation today, you're going to hear me talk a lot about the reactive methodologies and about the proactive methodologies. As we all want to be more proactive, we know that comes only with better data in real time. So the next thing we had to do is really understand what business objectives we want to go after. So as we look at those business objectives, there are a few critical points that we want to cover first. One of the first ones is a single visibility platform. So while we all love having an abundance of apps on our phone, especially all those fun social media ones, right? It's very critical that we have something that combines all the information in one place. One of the issues that you can come across by having multiple platforms trying to deliver the same data is the fact that the data is actually not the same. So you may have one piece of data in your WMS, one piece of data in your TMS, and one piece of data in an Excel spreadsheet, and none of them are the same. So it was very critical as we worked down this path with FourKites to have a single visibility platform so that we could have, so data can be less cumbersome and more efficient. The next thing with any of this, and we always talk about this, is a business objective is going to be to improve service. At Niagara, we're in a business where most of our customers have less than 1 to 2 days of inventory on hand. So we need a system that can help us make sure that we're on date, in full, on time every day. And it's very critical for us for any project that we work towards improving service. To be transparent, we did not understand exactly how this was going to help us do it, but we knew that having that real-time data was going to help us get better service than we had before. One of the most important aspects, as I mentioned earlier, is a proactive exception management. It's a major differentiating factor from being on time, early, or late. It's very critical when we look at the entire supply chain that you factor in all of those components. Quite often, we just think about being late. Okay, you're late, that's a problem, that's bad. But sometimes being too early could be a problem too, especially for the receiver who's not ready to accept your load and for the driver who now has to wait. And again, those unproductive hours that Matt talked about earlier just keep adding up and adding up when drivers are waiting. The next business objective that we wanted to make sure that we really dove into was having data that's timely, accurate, and overall complete. This is one of the most struggling parts that we have with the entire data set that we have. As we mentioned, we have tons of data, but the question is it accurate? If it's not accurate, you pretty much can't do anything with it because it would ring false alarms, having you reach out to carriers when they really weren't late, having you respond to consignees when other issues were happening. And really, that's why you want to make sure that the timeliness, accuracy, and completeness of the data is exactly where you want it to be. Another thing that we didn't know that we wanted, but after talking to FourKites, we actually realized was a very critical and very important portion of what things we could get from the tool is having insights not only on our carriers, because as we mentioned all the time, carriers are always a problem. It's the carrier being late. But we wanted to understand why were they late? And quite often what we would have is debates amongst our carriers, and they're saying, hey, we got held up at our previous stop, or we got held up by your customer. And so the great thing about one of the business objectives that this platform brought to us is deeper insights into consignee behaviors. So we knew exactly, we were learning exactly where those tough points were with specific customers on unload times, et cetera. And what we could do with that data is after the fact, we can go to our carriers, our customers, and say, hey, if you help us improve on dwell time at your facilities, not only is it going to help us reduce costs from Niagara perspective, it's going to help us reduce the cost that we charge you for your goods to be delivered. And last but not least in this particular piece is around increasing automation and efficiency. So obviously with increasing automation and efficiency, it helps the overall process by which you have less manual touches, more automated touches, and you move away from those latent systems and those prior behaviors. As with any project though, you're going to have to deliver financials. So what financials can you deliver? And so we had 3 major components that we wanted to go after as we approach this. The first one is to be, and all these are going to be to reduce or avoid RMAs, so return merchandise authorizations. So what would happen is if we were to deliver to a customer late or we did not deliver on the right date, we could get an RMA. And our company would have to eat that entire cost of that driver coming back to our facility. And it's multiple components of cost involved in that. You understand the freight component, but it's also the offloading of that. We in Niagara have a very automated process of loading trucks. However, when we have to unload the trucks, it has to be manual. And we don't always have the staffing or labor to do that. And if we do have to staff for that, we become less productive. The next critical piece is around spot freight. So you're wondering, what do I mean by spot freight? As I mentioned, we have a very tight supply chain. So most of our customers are either just in time, we do direct to store for a lot of our customers. And so when we don't hit the delivery window or we don't hit the exact time, it doesn't mean we can just cancel that load or automatically move it to the next day. What we may have to do is pull the load from that particular carrier and reassign it to another carrier on the spot market. And as all of you guys know, same day spot freight is going to be much more expensive than your normal contracted freight. And last but certainly not least, customer fines. So customers don't just give us a pass all the time when we're late. And so they have really restrictive methods of how they incorporate those fines and fees, and we must make sure we adhere to those.
So to your point, Christine, the main message for me from that video was Niagara's desire to really move from reactive to proactive decision-making. Literally, as I think about that, it's an evolution from data to information to insights to actionable insights, and that's the maturity growth as I see it. The reality is that most of our customers land somewhere along that evolutionary gradient with the goal of always moving to the next step.
Those are great points. What do you think enables or hinders that evolution to that next step?
Yeah, ironically for me, the answer is the same for both, and that's trust. Can I really trust the data that's driving the dashboards, the KPIs, the reports, everything that I'm seeing coming out of the platform? And that's just human instinct, especially in an environment where instincts have long been the decision-making bellwether. I'd be interested to get your opinion on that same question.
Yeah, for me, it's consistency and quality of data was key from that video, Niagara video. As you know, I've helped organizations build supply chain business cases for close to 15 years. It's never easy to capture what a project could actually result in. It's like predicting the future. However, you can be directionally correct if you can tie your organization's challenges with the capabilities that we offer here at FourKites and a solid roadmap to start from. The way that Michael identified the business objectives and the 3 key KPIs they had to measure to understand success was a big takeaway for me and was driven by the trust that you described. All areas that would impact cost of goods sold and had a major impact on Niagara business were those KPIs around the RMAs, the return merchandise authorizations, freight, labor, et cetera, spot freight, and customer fines. All those pieces contribute to COGS and how that impacts Niagara's business. And I think that's why he was successful. It was great to hear Michael speak earlier about carrier adoption as part of Niagara's journey, because one of the biggest benefits of real-time visibility is the ability to better collaborate with your broader ecosystem. When you consider all the different handoffs in the life cycle of an order between suppliers to shippers, 3PLs, carriers, warehousing, distribution, it can really be challenging for supply chain leaders to get the information they need to keep everything on track. Real-time visibility helps shine a light into these blind spots and provide a single source of truth for all these parties to understand where there might be issues. Let's hear from Bayer on how they're using FourKites to gain visibility further upstream into shipments from their suppliers.
So Johnny Ivani, that's my name. I'm responsible of the Center of Excellence of Logistics globally in Bayer Club Science. I'm the senior director. Responsible for this transformation in Bayer. We believe in 2 main topics. So let's see, cluster in Bayer: perform and transform.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, and I'm in the part of the transformation. I'm not in the field, but I'm part of the new strategy of the company.
Great. I love to hear that because we need to bring new people into the industry to help us to innovate. And so the theme right now is connected at visibility. How are you connecting geographies and teams across those geographies? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, good question. As a multicultural across the globe, a company across the globe, we are in more than 85 countries.
Okay.
This transformation is in 65 countries, so it's 90% of the transformation is happening in these 65.
That is a big job.
Yeah, from Argentina to the south of Latin America to China, Japan, Australia. So it's a big one. Different cultures, different background,
Yeah.
different customer expectation,
Okay.
and different teams.
Right.
But we are doing this massive across with what we call the global template and focus on 3 clusters.
Okay.
People transformation,
Okay.
process, and system. And that's what is coming FourKites. It's one of the system, and we call satellites, that is part of this transformation.
So let's talk about that digital transformation. I believe it's taken a little while. You've been in this for about 2 years. Talk to us about what that's looked like, where you are right now, and maybe a look into the future.
Yeah, I would say that we are in the middle of the marathon. It's 42.
Marathon, I like that.
Yeah.
See, it's not a sprint. It's a marathon. It's
Exactly.
not a destination.
I'm a sport guy,
it's a
so
journey.
that's what I like. This analogy. So we are in the middle, and we need more stamina. So we need 20 miles or 20 kilometers more.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the middle, but we had the foundation. I think we're in the middle of the foundation.
Okay.
Again, coming back to my initial comment about people, process, and system.
Mm-hmm.
We have started this transformation in the customer spectrum, and now we are moving to the upstream, that is the raw material. So it's how we are connecting the end-to-end customer experience and the internal stakeholders.
Well, and I think a lot of people are looking at the upstream and the raw material, especially from a customer perspective,
Correct.
as to where you're getting your raw materials. What does that look like? There's a lot that goes into it, and there's a lot of visibility that's needed into those suppliers as well.
Yeah, correct. And it's about as well about the complexity, because it's a complex war that we have. If we have, you see, Bayer, we have different business. The complex one is chemical. So we have our raw materials across the globe, from China, Japan, Australia, going to US. So this is vital for us. It's fundamental to us to get this visibility, because now one of the big and more important topics in the company is inventory. At the moment that you have visibility, you have inventory, and then you can get a better customer experience to your customer. That today, my customer is the farmer.
People, process, and technology. I'm so happy to hear Johnny talk about these 3 categories and the realization that all need to change, adapt, and grow in order to move Bayer forward as they evolve along their transformational journey. Just like many of our customers, Bayer started with visibility for outbound shipments of their finished goods to their customers, and they're now starting to look at their inbound raw material shipments to really leverage visibility for that inbound portion of their supply chain as well. And their inbound supply chain is quite complicated and very diverse. It encompasses hundreds of suppliers. So having complete visibility across multiple modes and sourcing from multiple countries across the globe is really a game changer for Bayer. As Johnny says, they now have a single source of the truth when it comes to their supply chain.
I agree. And you can't help but to get excited about how positive he was, right? In that video, he was very excited about the transformation.
Yes, contagious.
Yeah. One of the biggest financial drains on any supply chain are accessorial fees, such as detention and demurrage. In this example, we hear significant savings because they're able to be proactive with improved internal communication across the business. With tools like proactive alerts and exception dashboards, shippers can intervene much earlier than they have in the past. This is a place where real-time visibility can add immediate value back to your business. Pixelle talks about several cost savings in the video, from cutting down on incoming customer emails to a reduction in detention and a reduction in delayed deliveries. Let's hear how Pixelle has been able to reduce detention with FourKites.
One of my most important metrics in order management is tracking our customer satisfaction index, and it's just a little bit of an on-time in full metric on steroids, so to speak. So we measure anything that would delay the order from order entry to customer delivery. It might be a production delay, it might be an issue with raw materials or chemicals, or it might be a mechanical breakdown on the road that we track weekly, and that is sort of our commitment to the service delivery to the customer. That is our #1 metric in my group. And because I handle customer service, scheduling, sales and ops planning, and logistics and distribution, we have our hands in all of that. Our #1 impact in my group has been the internal communication. We have rolled it out to our customer service group so they have access to it. So if they get a phone call from a customer They're not going to any other system to find that information for the load. They can answer that customer's question in real time. So email, when it pertains to track and trace, has been almost halved in terms of what we see on a daily basis between our customer service group, our load planners, and our carriers. And it's been a great efficiency for us in terms of just headaches, being able to track down anything. But that really started almost immediately when we were able to get our carrier network balanced and started tracking and tracing via FourKites. Our overall detention has probably been down at least 20% a month over the last 8 months. Which has been a very critical factor, and becoming a shipper of choice and reducing your dwell time is huge in this tight market. You want to be able to attract carriers, not push them away.
Wow, 20% reduction in detention per month in the first 8 months of use. That's significant. And I'm hearing that phrase, shipper of choice, more and more these days as the carrier market continues to be so constrained. But interestingly, and the bigger takeaway for me from this testimonial is the improved level of customer service that Pixelle has been able to achieve by way of our solution. Harder to quantify than detention savings for sure, but no less valuable to an organization overall. And the productivity aspect, simply huge. Customers will often forgive a late shipment when they are told about it in advance, and almost never forgive a late shipment when no notification is given.
That's a great point about customer service, being able to proactively identify risks to save the order or keep customers updated in advance so they can account for the late delivery on their side. Whether you're a B2B or a B2C business, the expectations are the same. Customers want to know where their stuff is and when it will arrive. FourKites customer Cardinal Health has really embraced this within their own business. Let's hear from them how they're integrating real-time visibility data for FourKites into their customer-facing systems to improve their customer experience.
Transparency is a key aspect of building trust. And as a business, we are really looking at how we can provide that transparency to customers on their orders so that they will then trust in us. And at Cardinal Health, that's really important. We are making over 50,000 deliveries of pharmaceuticals and medical supplies a day. We are serving nearly 90% of the hospitals in the United States, over 60,000 pharmacies, and more than 10,000 physician offices and clinics. And these products can range anywhere from your everyday medical supplies, things like gloves, stethoscopes, usually not urgent, but obviously very critical to keeping those healthcare businesses running. Or it could be something that is really important, temperature-controlled, life-saving medicines that customers need. So obviously having that trust in when their shipments are going to arrive is very important to our customers. And as we've really been looking at how we at Cardinal Health can continue to add value to both our customers and to our shareholders, we really have two main things that we're focused on, and I imagine these are very similar to what many of you guys are focusing on as well. First is really making sure we are staying very customer-centered. So any solutions we're creating, we really want to make sure we have the customer at the heart of it. And then secondly, we're really looking at how do we continue to find operational efficiencies that will allow us to continue to decrease our costs and maybe continue to improve on our processes internally. What we have seen as we've been on this journey with visibility is that we can continue forward and achieve both of those simultaneously. And I'm going to share a little bit more about this experience with you. So first, this is kind of a bird's eye view of how we integrate all of our shipment data. At the center there, we have a visibility engine, and this is what serves as kind of the centerpiece and a translator between all of the data that we have coming internally and what we're giving our customers to all of our external facing channels. So we've got orders, we've got shipments coming from our TMS, we have all of the data coming through FourKites from our carriers. Those come into that visibility engine, it translates that and then sends it out to our different external customer facing channels. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit on this connection we have with FourKites. This is definitely critical. With this, we have created a direct connection to our carriers across all of our modes. parcel, LTL, truckload, our couriers, even our Cardinal Health private fleet. So we have all of those sending data to us. So with that, we're getting over 3 million daily updates coming in from our carriers into FourKites and then coming into us. Now that is a lot of data to try to make sense of. So knowing that we want to take that data and we want to give it to customers, but we have to try to make some kind of sense of it, right? There has to be a translation. All of this data is coming to us through an API. There could be over 15 different event triggers that would trigger an update through the API. Now, all of us in the room, or many of us at least, we understand all the different milestones of getting a shipment from point A to point B. We can probably take a look at the data and pretty much make sense of it, right? But an administrator at a hospital or at a physician's office, they aren't going to understand that at all. And chances are most of your customers probably wouldn't understand it as well. So what do? There are essentially two questions that the recipients really want answers to. The first is, where is the shipment now? And the second is, when is it going to be here? So what we try to do is take all of that data and translate that into two different statuses. The first status is a most recent event status. So we're really trying to look at all the scans and then interpret that into one of 6 different most recent events. This could be something like release to the carrier, in transit from our DC or from our depot, or it could be delivered. So we have that most recent event status. The second one we create is the punctuality status. Is it awaiting an ETA? Is it on time? Or is it late? So we're really trying to boil all that data into very simple, easily digested statuses.
I love the phrase Amy used in her presentation. Transparency is a key ingredient in building trust. Love that. Specific to Cardinal, it's all about transparency of a customer's order that leads to that trust. And they're ensuring their customers get the right level of detail and information that makes sense for them. And data quality is a really critical aspect of this. If you're passing along inaccurate information, that can really start to erode that trust. You know, at FourKites, data quality is something we've really invested heavily in. We know that trust is a two-way street. We want our customers to trust us so that our customers' customers can really trust them.
The final use case we're going to cover today is increasing team productivity. One of the biggest reasons companies seek out a real-time visibility platform is to help automate track and trace. For some companies, this is still a highly manual process, resulting in an endless cycle of emails and phone calls for each load. It limits your ability to focus on more strategic initiatives. By not knowing where your loads are, it becomes a huge problem for frontline employees who work at distribution centers and stores. So often they're waiting around wondering where a truck is and are pulled away from other tasks such as stocking or selling on the floor. This was an area Big Lots was able to see significant improvements with FourKites. Let's hear from them.
So you can imagine, as we've had a significant number of late deliveries in the past with no visibility to when they're coming, you've got a lot of associates who are standing around without anything to do, trying to figure out where that truck is. So we've improved our on time by 20 percentage points over the last year, and that's really improved our store productivity for the associates on the unload team. The stores can self-service, and it's allowed us to redeploy our own internal transportation analysts to be able to analyze the business strategically, doing things like improving route planning, reducing miles, and working with our carriers to improve their operating efficiency to lower our overall costs. Yes, we are absolutely using real-time visibility to plan and prepare for peak season coming up. So all of the data that we collect in FourKites calls back to our TMS, and that TMS data is all transferred into a control tower where we have visibility end to end from on the water in the ocean all the way to delivery to the distribution center to know exactly where all of our product is and we can review anything that's running behind, any disruptions, and make proactive changes to be able to possibly change modes, right? To get the loads there either on time or utilize it to notify the business so that they can make decisions on what to do with product.
There's that number again, 20%. But this time with Big Lots, that was their improvement in on-time delivery. And that translated into more efficient and more productive use of their unload teams at their docks. We see this a lot in the facility space where dock personnel are inherently inefficient due to waiting around time. You heard that right in the video. So that's a tactical improvement they have seen, but there's also a strategic component in that their internal analysts are able to now use the solution to better manage their overall supply chain. I see our solution as being a game changer at Big Lots.
John, can you talk a little bit about how automation and AI are intersecting with real-time visibility and how companies are seeing drastic increases in productivity with these technologies?
Yeah, and I'll even give you a real-life example from our solution suite. Our appointment manager system now has the ability to automatically book appointments that are pushed to it from typically from the TMS. It just slots them into the calendar based on the ask date or the want date. What we're coming up with next is the ability to use our ETA data to actually auto rebook appointments that are going to miss. So when we see an appointment that was scheduled for today at 4 p.m., let's say, and our ETA tells us that the driver is going to be there tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., we can, if the customer enables this setting, automatically rebook that appointment for 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, opening up today's 4 p.m. slot that could perhaps be used for an early arriving driver. The whole idea there is to use the technology and the information to really drive efficiency and productivity at a facility level.
Well, John, we went through, 5 good case studies here with Niagara and lower supply chain costs, Bayer with managing ecosystem performance, Pixelle with accessorial fees, Cardinal Health with customer service improvement, and team productivity with Big Lots. It was quite a successful group to speak to. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think for me, the really amazing takeaway is that we are able to move the needle with these customers, regardless of the pain point that they're suffering from. It's just a testament to the platform, the strength that it has, and the capabilities that it can provide to customers who are invariably suffering from a variety of all of these different challenges, right? Whereas one may be suffering from supply chain costs, another one from accessorial fees, but at the end of the day, they're all going to have some component of all of these challenges hitting their supply chain.
On behalf of John and myself, thank you all for attending this webinar. I think we've really hit on some key points that would be useful for supply chain leaders. If you have any questions, please contact sales@fourkites.com or send a note through the chat, and we'll be with you as soon as possible within the next 24 hours. Thank you again.